I'm not a smoker. I'm not a smoker of cigarettes. I'm not a smoker of marijuana. I'm not someone who's ever been into drug use, and I'm perfectly fine with that. So yes, 5 or 6 times in my life is probably the right amount that I would have tried it from time to time.
Everyone's still talking about some angle about the Justin Trudeau pot admissions he recently made. Let's go straight to our Toronto studio. Mark Elliot is an addictions counselor and radio host. Mark, you know all about this. I want to ask you first off the bat, is this whole thing something worth chatting about? Does it have something to do with public policy or Trudeau's personal issues?
It has something to do with public policy because we now have the leader of a federal party saying that he has smoked weed. And has smoked it after being elected. Does this make a difference? Of course it does, and I think it's gonna change the view an awful lot of people have of Justin Trudeau.
Is that a bad thing to say as an elected official? I smoked pot, even though it was at my house and the kids were at the grandmother's house and it was just friends around.
Is it bad? Yes. Does this set an example? Yes, it does. And Is he the only politician in Ottawa who's ever used drugs? No, he's not by a long stretch. But this public admission, I think it's going to have 2 things. One is that those who are opposed to the legalization or the decriminalization of marijuana are jumping on this and pushing it as, this is a reason why we should have more controls. The other thing is, though, that the public view of marijuana is 50% in favor of legalization. So is he doing the right thing? I think he probably is from a political perspective, because I think Canadians are fed up with the crazy criminal penalties that we have. I don't think that it's going to hurt him in the long run. In fact, it may be a winning move. I
do wonder, though, if it may hurt him with pot advocates. Yesterday, we were playing a clip by Mark Emery. He's the Prince of Pot, as you know. Yeah. He was saying he'd smoked pot 4 or 5 times with Trudeau, and he went gaggers in the way he inhaled. Big sessions they had together. But Trudeau today had this to say of Mr. Emery.
I have actually only ever met Mark Emery 1 time in my life, so that's a lot of smoking that I apparently, according to him, did. He's actually flat out lying, because in the 5 or 6 times I've ever smoked marijuana, I've never done it except with people I know and trust and who are friends. And Mark Emery was someone I met, but certainly not someone I ever would have thought of smoking with. And I did not ever smoke with Mark Emery, although he smoked in front of me.
So Mark, in your counseling, I know you deal with people who lie a lot about the truth. Clearly, either Mark Emery or Justin Trudeau is lying.
Well, there is an old catchphrase, which is, how can you tell a drug addict's lying? Their lips are moving.
Right.
Mark Emery, in this case, is pushing his own agenda. I don't think there's any reason for Justin Trudeau to lie about it. I think he can probably document any time that he actually met Mark Emery, so I think Mr. Emery is pushing his own agenda.
You don't think they both have political reasons? I mean, this could chalk up 50-50. Who's lying?
Well, there are any number of political reasons for a person to come forward and make the allegations Mark Emery is making. I mean, obviously, he wants to see pot legalized. End of story. If he can drag Justin Trudeau into this, then he's more than happy to play it for all it's worth. But the fact is that Justin Trudeau has admitted that he has smoked it. Rare that a public official in Canada has admitted that they've used marijuana or any other drug, when in fact, is this really something that does not go on? Of course it goes on. We just don't know about it.
So we got an interesting quote from Margaret Trudeau. She said that marijuana it can be a very dangerous thing. Marijuana can trigger psychosis. Every time I was hospitalized, it was preceded by heavy use of marijuana. She's obviously known for her mental health struggles in decades past. Do you agree with what she's saying?
I agree exactly with what she's saying. It's not a common occurrence, but it does happen that marijuana does trigger a form of schizophrenia. That's documented, and I've seen cases of it where people have literally lost their mind over one use of marijuana has triggered schizophrenia.
Is that because of the particular potency or because of the person and their particular makeup?
Some people have a weakness for this, and there seems to be something genetic. It is a medical fact that some people simply cannot use weed. The same way, there are some people who genetically respond to cocaine in a way. They use cocaine once, their heart stops. It's something that happens rarely, but it does happen. And when it happens, it's got consequences that are beyond belief. Literally, we watch people go from being brilliant to being vegetables.
So you and I both know that clearly 57% of Canadians, according to some media polls, support the full legalization. Something like this is going to happen, whether it's in a year or a decade. Justin Trudeau doesn't seem to be talking about the fact that there are regulatory challenges that we're going to face, the very ones that you talk about in terms of some people can handle it, some people don't. What message would you give to try and temper this conversation so it's not extreme one way or the other?
Our government, the Conservative government of Stephen Harper, has taken a very, very critical line on this, and they've proposed mandatory minimums. They're looking at punishing people for even being caught with a small quantity of marijuana. That's the wrong way to go. We've seen what has happened. The United States has a good percentage of its population in jail because of drug charges. They're now backing away from mandatory minimums. We're going there. Why are we doing this? I don't know. I don't really understand the thinking in the Conservative Party as to their position on marijuana in particular. I don't think it's well thought out, and I don't think that the Canadian public wants us to go that way, and it's liable to have repercussions in the long term.
So, Mark, the other news story this week was that a group of of police chiefs across Canada have said they want to start fining people for various minor marijuana legal issues rather than putting them through the full legal system with criminal charges. Do you think that's the right way to go?
Put yourself in the position of a cop. You're dealing with this not only on a public level as an officer of the law. You're also dealing with it in private with your own children. You're dealing with it in the community. You're faced with an epidemic of drug use. We have to accept the fact that marijuana is here. It's not going to go away. We're not going to legislate our way into a drug-free society. We have to find different approaches. I think it's actually good that the police chiefs themselves are looking at this and saying, hey, wait a minute, guys. You're the ones making the laws. We're the ones that have to enforce it, and we can't enforce it. It just doesn't work the way you want it to. So we have to take a new approach. We have to look for a new tactic. How are we going to get the public to stop wanting these drugs? These drugs are here. I mean, they wouldn't be here if there wasn't a demand for them. And this is the problem that we're faced with. On one hand, we've got a public that will not give up their bad habits, and at the same time, we have laws that say those bad habits could result in jail. The police are caught in the middle of this. They're looking at a way, how do we make sense out of this nonsense?
All right, Mark, thanks very much for stopping by. We're out of time, but I'm sure we'll check in with you again in the future. Folks, you can listen to Mark Elliot on CFRB Radio in Toronto.